but the cure. It's a curse.
Michael.
In late summer headlines and fan forums alike, one image kept resurfacing. Jared Leto standing in flowing white on a private Adriatic island. Surrounded by devotees who had paid thousands to be there. They meditated, listened, and gazed as if at a prophet. Packages for the retreat ran into the thousands of dollars. With VIP tiers advertised at over $6. Was this an immersive fan experience, or something edging toward a modern cult? The actor rock star fronting 30 Seconds to Mars called it Mars Island, and for years he joked that his fandom was a cult. But as photos of robed gatherings spread, the joke curdled. Critics saw choreography, believers saw communion. Then a darker wave hit. Multiple women came forward with serious misconduct allegations, claims Leto has categorically denied, pushing the narrative from oddball mystique to moral crisis. So who is Jared Leto in 2025, Oscar winner and avant-pop icon building a radical artist fan community? Or a manipulator packaging devotion under the moonlight? As the music swells and the cameras move closer, we pull back the curtain on Mars Island. Power, youth, and the price of worship in Hollywood. The question isn't just whether a cult exists, it's why so many wanted one. Jared Joseph Leto was born on December 26, 1971, in Bossier City, Louisiana, a place far removed from the glamour and chaos that would one day define his name. His early life was marked not by privilege, but by constant movement and quiet instability. His parents divorced when he was still a baby, and Jared's biological father died by suicide when he was 8 years old, a tragedy that would later shadow his understanding of life, mortality, and creativity. Raised by his mother, Constance, a free-spirited woman deeply involved in the arts and the counterculture of the 1970s. Jared and his older brother Shannon were surrounded by musicians, painters, and drifters. The Leto household didn't have much money, but it was overflowing with imagination. My mom encouraged us to dream without limits. Jared would later say, she made creativity a survival tool. That nomadic upbringing meant frequent moves across the U.S., from Louisiana to Colorado to Virginia. The brothers learned resilience early. They were outsiders everywhere they went. Learning to adapt, to perform, to survive, music became their language, and rebellion their rhythm. By his teenage years, Jared's sense of difference had solidified into ambition. He wasn't content to fit in, he wanted to transcend. He drew, played guitar, and immersed himself in photography. While other kids imagined stable futures, Jared imagined worlds, cinematic, emotional, unbound. Those restless roots would shape the man he became, a dreamer allergic to routine. Driven by an almost religious belief in transformation, the loss of his father and the bohemian influence of his mother forged a personality both sensitive and unyielding, a duality that would later define his artistry, and perhaps his darker obsessions with control, image, and power. Behind the future cult icon was once a boy searching for stability, and finding instead the intoxicating power of reinvention. Jared Leto's path to fame was never linear. After drifting through a handful of high schools, he eventually found direction in art, first studying at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and later transferring to the School of Visual Arts in New York City. There, he began exploring filmmaking, writing, and acting, tools for transforming the chaos of his past into something beautiful and controlled. In New York, Jared was dirt poor but relentlessly creative. He spent nights editing short films on borrowed equipment and days working odd jobs just to survive. The city's energy, raw, cynical, electric, fed his ambition. New York teaches you how to bleed for your dreams, he once said, and Leto was willing to bleed plenty. In 1992, he moved to Los Angeles, chasing what he called the cinematic American dream. Within months, he landed small roles in TV series like Camp Wilder and Almost Home. But his breakout came in 1994 with My So-Called Life, where he played Jordan Catalano, the mysterious, emotionally detached teenager who made an entire generation of viewers swoon. The role turned Jared into an overnight teen idol, though he resented the label. "I never wanted to be famous," he told Vanity Fair. "I wanted to make art." That drive soon led him away from television and into film, where he began taking on darker, more complex roles. Prefontaine, 1997, Fight Club, 1999, and American Psycho, 2000. Leto built a reputation for losing himself in his characters, often literally. He gained weight, starved himself, and disappeared into personas until even friends couldn't recognize him. But acting wasn't enough. In the late 90s, Jared and his brother Shannon formed 30 Seconds to Mars, a band that fused cinematic soundscapes with philosophical lyrics. It wasn't just music, it was myth-making. Leto wasn't chasing celebrity anymore. He was building a world. That obsession with creation and control, with being not just an artist but an architect of emotion, would soon make Jared Leto one of the most compelling, and later, most controversial figures in Hollywood. By the early 2000s, Jared Leto had carved out a reputation as one of Hollywood's most intense and mysterious actors, a man who treated performance not as entertainment, but as a form of transformation. After critically acclaimed performances in Requiem for a Dream, 2000, and Panic Room, 2002, Leto became synonymous with the phrase, method actor. He didn't just play roles, he lived them, often at great personal cost. His portrayal of heroin addict Harry Goldfarb in Requiem for a Dream was brutal and haunting. To prepare, he lost more than 25 pounds and spent weeks shadowing real-life addicts on the streets of New York. Critics called it a career-defining performance. Audiences called it disturbing. Leto called it truth. Yet, even as his acting career soared, Jared's other identity, the musician, was quietly growing into a global phenomenon. 30 Seconds to Mars, the band he formed with his brother Shannon, released their debut album in 2002. While the first record received modest attention, their 2005 follow-up A Beautiful Lie exploded. With cinematic videos, existential lyrics, and Jared's otherworldly charisma, the band cultivated not just fans, but believers. They didn't attend concerts, they attended rituals. Jared's stage presence was hypnotic, part rock star, part preacher, part messiah, dressed in white, often addressing his audience as the family. He blurred the line between performance and worship. Fans tattooed his lyrics, camped outside venues for days, and followed the band across continents. By the 2010s, Jared was living two lives, and dominating both. In 2013, he won the Academy Award for Dallas Buyers Club, transforming into a transgender woman named Rayon with such empathy and precision that critics hailed him as one of the greatest character actors of his generation. That same year, 30 Seconds to Mars sold out arenas around the world. He had become a cultural paradox, the Oscar-winning artist and the rock prophet, the eternal youth of Hollywood who seemed untouched by time. But behind the angelic image, something else was forming, a power dynamic built not on art, but on adoration. Fans began to whisper about the intensity of the Echelon, the band's fan community, about private messages, spiritual retreats, and secret islands where Jared appeared in flowing robes. The myth of Jared Leto, the immortal artist, was no longer just a metaphor. It was beginning to look like a movement, one that blurred dangerously close to religion. For someone who lived so publicly on stage, Jared Leto's love life remained strangely elusive. He was a master of mystery, appearing in gossip columns one day and vanishing into silence the next. Over the years, his name was linked to some of the most recognizable women in Hollywood, from Cameron Diaz to Scarlett Johansson, Ashley Olsen, and even rumored connections with Lindsay Lohan and Katy Perry. Yet, none of these relationships ever defined him. Leto treated love the way he treated art, experimental, fleeting, and layered with performance. In interviews, he often dismissed personal questions with a smirk. "I'm married to my work," he once said, half joking, half serious. It wasn't hard to believe. While others sought companionship, Jared sought creation, a muse. not a partner. However, his charm wasn't without controversy. In the mid-2010s, rumors began surfacing online of Jared's relationships with much younger women. Some alleged that he frequently flirted with teenage fans through social media, inviting them backstage at shows or to private gatherings. While none of these accusations were ever proven, they painted a troubling picture, one of blurred boundaries between artist and admirer. Those close to him described Jared as magnetic but manipulative, a man who could make anyone feel seen, until he didn't. "He's intoxicating," one anonymous source said, "but everything with Jared feels like a test, as if he's trying to see how far you'll go for him." His dual identities, the saintly rock god and the silent actor, bled into his private life. Friends spoke of a deep loneliness behind the image of control, an inability to connect without performing. Love, for Jared, was never about equality, it was about gravity. People orbited him, willingly, even desperately, and he thrived on that pull. By the time 30 Seconds to Mars launched its immersive retreats on Mars Island, his relationships with fans and romantic partners had blurred beyond recognition. The man who once sang about searching for meaning now stood as a symbol of obsession, both given and received. Love, for Jared Leto, was no longer just personal. It had become spiritual, collective, and for some, dangerously close to worship. The cracks in Jared Leto's immaculate image began to show when fans started posting pictures from an exclusive event called Mars Island, a luxury retreat organized by his band. 30 Seconds to Mars, on a private island off the coast of Croatia. The images were surreal. Jared, dressed in flowing white robes, stood before hundreds of followers who gazed at him with adoration. They called him the prophet. They wore matching white clothes, participated in silent meditations, listened to sermons disguised as motivational speeches, and attended intimate acoustic performances under candlelight. Packages for the retreat cost thousands of dollars, ranging from base experience passes to elite tiers exceeding $6. At first, Jared laughed off the cult accusations. He even leaned into the idea, tweeting, "Yes, this is a cult," but the irony didn't age well. As more details emerged, the internet began to question whether the actor was hiding behind irony or indulging in power. Former attendees described Mars Island as a spiritual experience wrapped in celebrity worship. Some said participants treated Leto like a savior figure, kneeling before him during photo ops. Others claimed there were strict rules about photography and contact, with all focus directed toward Jared's presence. But what truly ignited controversy were allegations that extended beyond worship. On social media and fan forums, several women came forward with stories of Leto's alleged predatory behavior, some claiming they were underage when the interactions occurred. They described private invitations to hotel rooms, cryptic DMs, and a pattern of emotional manipulation. While no formal charges were ever filed, the consistency of the accounts raised eyebrows across the industry. Fellow musicians, journalists, and even former fans began labeling him Hollywood's untouchable cult leader. Behind the music and the mystery, a darker portrait emerged, of a man obsessed with youth, power, and control. Many noted that Jared seemed to chase the illusion of eternal life, surrounding himself with worshippers who reinforced his ageless myth. At 50, he still looked 30, his skin flawless, his presence magnetic, but the price of that immortality was now on full display. Warner Brothers and Marvel, both of which had employed him in major franchises, Suicide Squad, Morbius, stayed silent, but insiders hinted that the allegations had quietly blacklisted him from new studio projects. The Jesus of Hollywood image that once drew admiration now looked sinister, a mask hiding something far more manipulative. By 2022, social media was calling for accountability. The hashtag Leto cult trended repeatedly, with fans demanding transparency about Mars Island and the treatment of young followers. Still, Jared never directly addressed the accusations, choosing instead to retreat into silence and cryptic social posts about art, energy, and light. The silence only deepened the mystery, and for many, confirmed their fears. What had begun as an experiment in art and fandom had spiraled into something much darker, a real-life cult of personality built on money, devotion, and myth. And as the world watched, the question shifted from, is Jared Leto guilty? To, how did we let this happen? When the storm finally hit full force, Jared Leto did what he'd always done best: he vanished. Interviews stopped, public appearances ceased. Mars Island quietly disappeared from the band's website. His social media, once filled with cryptic spiritual quotes and glamorous tour shots, turned sparse. It was as if the prophet had gone into exile. Behind closed doors, industry insiders whispered that studios were hesitant to touch him. Warner Brothers distanced itself after Suicide Squad, 2016, and Sony's Morbius, 2022, became a meme for all the wrong reasons, a film mocked, forgotten, and later used as proof that Jared's mystique had collapsed. Once considered a box office wildcard, he was now Hollywood's risk no one wanted to take. Still, Jared Leto was never one to surrender. Instead of chasing mainstream redemption, he shifted back toward music, the only realm where he maintained absolute control. In 2023, 30 Seconds to Mars released a new album. It's the end of the world, but it's a beautiful day, marking his quiet re-emergence. Gone were the white robes and the sermons. The visuals were stripped down, reflective, even melancholic, a man facing the mirror rather than the masses. In rare interviews, Jared spoke vaguely about energy shifts, growth, and separating truth from noise. He never directly addressed the allegations or the cult rumors, only saying, people project their fears onto what they don't understand. To critics, it sounded evasive. To devoted fans, it was gospel. Mars Island reappeared in 2024, rebranded as an eco-music retreat. The robes were gone, but the reverence remained. Videos from the new events showed Leto smiling serenely, hugging fans, performing under sunset skies, the aesthetic of redemption, carefully curated. But could a man once accused of building a cult ever truly escape its shadow? Many believed this rebirth was just another performance, another reinvention of the same myth. Hollywood, meanwhile, seemed content to watch from a distance. And yet, as always, Jared Leto refused to fade. Whether through music, fashion, or silence, he had turned scandal into spectacle, criticism into curiosity. He wasn't cancelled, just transformed. Because for Jared Leto, downfall and resurrection were never opposites. They were simply two acts in the same performance. Today, Jared Leto remains one of Hollywood's most polarizing enigmas, a man both adored and distrusted. Worshipped and ridiculed, at 53, he still looks unnervingly youthful. His piercing blue eyes and flawless skin fueling endless speculation about how he seems untouched by time. Some call it discipline, others call it illusion. He continues to front 30 Seconds to Mars, performing to sold-out crowds, many of whom still see him as more than a musician. His live shows remain theatrical, almost ceremonial. Fans raise their hands as if in prayer, chanting lyrics like sacred verses. The robes may be gone, but the devotion lingers. In Hollywood, his acting career stands at a crossroads. After years of controversy, whispers suggest a quiet return through independent cinema, smaller, character-driven projects far removed from superhero chaos. The industry hasn't fully forgiven him, but neither has it forgotten his undeniable talent. For better or worse, Jared Leto has always been too fascinating to ignore. Behind the curtain, though, his myth grows. The cult leader label never truly disappeared, it evolved into legend. Mars Island still operates annually, though under stricter management, promising art, peace, and mindfulness. Whether that's a genuine shift or just another mask, no one can say for sure. Because with Jared Leto, truth and performance have always been inseparable. Every scandal becomes art, every downfall, another resurrection. He once said, "The thing about immortality is that it's not about living forever, it's about never being forgotten." And perhaps that's the final mystery. Maybe Jared Leto isn't chasing youth, fame, or power. Maybe he's chasing the one thing no scandal can destroy: belief. Whether he's a misunderstood visionary or a manipulator hiding behind beauty, one thing is certain: Jared Leto remains Hollywood's immortal rebel, and his story is far from over.